What up, YouTube? It's your homegirl. Need I say more? Yes, I always have more to say. And today we're continuing our discussion. You're a woman going to prison. What can you expect? I'm only going to share what I know of my own experience. I don't pretend to be some sort of authority on the way things are everywhere. But today we're talking about social structure and fights. Okay? So, real talk, fights are much worse in the men's prison. And you will find more people divided by race and gang lines in there. Okay? TS, La Mafia, a bunch of white supremacist gangs, black gangs. The Asian people, you don't see it, especially where I was in South Texas. You don't see them in a lot of gangs, but they tend to stick together a lot, which I admire about them, because you need that in there. Well, that's in the men's prison. In the women's prison, don't smoke cigarettes. In the women's prison, they are divided among race lines, but I'd say it's more about race, religion, and instead of gangs, you sort of develop sort of surrogate family structures, okay? So you might have someone who's a bit of an old timer in there, an older lady, and people might call her mom, and they might call her tia, and don't do that unless they invite you to, or they adopt you in some sort of way, right? Or they're cool with you like that, and they say it's cool, right? Don't just do that and challenge them in front of others. But often, and they won't necessarily be partners either, but there might be someone there that they call dad, and that person might be a more masculine presenting lesbian, right? Or queer woman, a bit on the masculine side. And then you'll have tias who are wise and they're a little older, or they have more experience and this and that. They got tia status, but they're not quite mom yet, and maybe they don't want to be mom. Not all women want to be mothers. I know me, I bring big crazy tia energy. If this were back in the day of the revolution, I probably would have been an Adelita. But so there's those family structures, right? And I was raised as a bit of a coconut, right? I was raised in a poor white neighborhood that had experienced white flight. So white flight for them and us in South Texas wasn't just about black people moving into your neighborhoods. It was also about us Mexicans. So I've always been kind of a coconut, or that mixed race place you fall into sometimes when you're not Mexican enough for your Mexican people and you're not white enough for the white people. And that's for damn sure. And so I always, this is sort of the way I was in high school too. And because I went to school in the poor white neighborhood, I had this sort of, where you fall into certain cliques and certain friend groups. I had certain people that I ran with, which were more like back in those days would have been known as more like the emo kids. But I kept with a lot of groups of people, and real talk, I had friends in almost every social circle when I was in high school. And because I didn't understand too much about white supremacy, I even had friends that were white supremacists. And now I'm like, why are you my friend? I'm a Mexican. You're white supremacist. So I never really fit in totally with the other Hispanic chicks, and most of them in that area would have been Mexican, but not all, right? So I never totally fit in with the Latinas. They recognized my coconuttiness for what it was, but they knew where my loyalties lie, right? Because there would be times that somebody would say something about my people, and I would get up and I'd be like, hey, don't talk about my people like that. And it would, there were words. But the percentage of people that are atheist in prison it correlates directly with the percentage of people who are atheist in the world. And this is 2014, so back then it was about 3 to 5%. And so there were about 300 prisoners, the camp where I was stationed, and so there were about 3% of the people were atheist identified or agnostic, right? And so I found my own place because I'm kind of nerdy though. And so I got to be a good teacher to help tutoring people with their GED. I became known as the chick that could walk and read because I would read everything in the library, and the way you do it, you should use this for your phones. Don't look on your phone this way when you're walking. Pick them up and bring them away from your face, and then you can see with your peripheral vision around. And I would just walk around reading, and that's all I did. And so I came to be known as like a scholarly type, and that's where my niche fit in, And they didn't mess with me. They respected that I was helping, people out. But the craziest divide that I noticed, and it was kind of weird. Not weird. Some of them were weird. It was that, see, Fort Worth is in the bottom edge of the Bible Belt. And we all kind of have an idea of what that means. But what it also kind of means is that's like a line where you're mostly Protestant, right? And then from there south, you're going to have Protestant, but you're going to have a lot of Catholic influence. And that's really what the bottom edge of the Bible Belt is, right? Right there. And there was a big difference between black evangelical chicks in there and the black community. And it was almost like the black community was tight, whether you were evangelical or Muslim or Jewish or Israelite or whatever, right? Religion didn't divide them like that, right? But I worked with people, all these people, and I got to know all these people, right? There was one chick I worked with. She was a black lady, and she worked with me on recycling detail, and she had been a pastor with her husband when they were out. That's a crazy story. It's not my business to tell. But she was cool, man. And I was in my hard atheist phase. Because before that, I was talking all this hard stuff on atheism on YouTube. And then I went in there. Some of the books I read were the books that were real big in the day. A lot of Christopher Hitchens. A lot of, Dawkins. And I left those books I donated them to the prison library. They'll clean out the library every once in a while, but it does help when you donate stuff. Like I read the whole True Blood series in there, and so reading is a big deal. But I shit you not, my first bunkie's name was Karen. I shit you not. I remember her last name, but I'm just not gonna go there. Oh, this lady, and exactly what you think of Karen, that is exactly who she was. And she gave me a hard time from day one, and I was fresh in there, and I didn't know anything about being in prison. And I was just trying to get along with everybody, as I always do. That shit doesn't get you nowhere, man. You find people who are good to you, don't trust them too much. Don't trust nobody too much. But find people who are good to you and kind of stick to them while kind of keeping to your own business. But, Karen was very much like a representative of the way things were different between the black Baptists or the Christians and the white Baptists or the Southern Baptist white ladies and the evangelical types, those types. These two groups are not that they may believe in the same Jesus, but they do not believe in Jesus in the same way and treating their neighbor in the same way. because from day one, those white evangelical ladies gave me a hard time. I mean, Karen went to the guard and tried to get me in trouble day one. She's talking stuff about being atheist. Why does she? And so the guard asked me about it, and she said, "Are you talking about being an atheist in the thing?" And I just responded, "Ma'am, everybody in my room talks about their belief structure, and I didn't know that as an atheist here, I am not allowed to speak about my non-belief." And there wasn't really anything she could say to that. Okay, but as far as as far as fights go, keep your head down. Don't be a drama starter. Don't be one of those that always has to have somebody you hate. Because then you're looking for enemies. Find a niche. Find a group you're okay with. Don't trust anybody 100%. Right? Every once in a while, if you're lucky, you find that person that you're like, they got you. And I found that person in there too, but don't trust everybody. And as far as the fights that were, there were a lot of little bickering and scraps in pill line. The older ladies are vicious in pill line. Do not cut in pill line. And there was a scrap in there. They got sent to the SHU, and it was a romantic dispute. So a lesbian couple, and someone was flirting with someone they shouldn't have been, and I don't know, but there was a fight, and that's what happened. Other than that, really no fights. Not at Carswell, not at the work camp. Unless you did something major, they're probably, especially if you're a first timer, they're probably going to send you to a work camp first. So you're going to have to get a job. And I talk about that in my last, you're going to prison, you're a woman going to prison, what can you expect? Part 1, this is part 2. But yeah, and there were some of my co-defendants that were male that went to the men's prison that did get in big squabs. But that's going to happen there. But you go in there, you be polite without being a priss. You be about your own business. You be a hard worker. You don't make yourself a liability on work detail, and they will respect you even if they never talk to you. And that means something in there. But yeah, my co-defendant got his ass kicked. But he got his ass kicked because he has a big mouth. And he went in there just like he was with the lawyer, trying to talk big shit, trying to act like he knew everything. And yeah, they got sick of him running his mouth, and they tagged him a couple dudes in the shower. Not like that, but they beat him up. So in the men's prison, it is worse. But there too, there's also a matter of, it's a certain type of social intelligence. It's street social intelligence. You can't go up to people you don't know and be like, "Hey, how you doing?" No, they're not gonna. But in the men's prison, they might. You keep to yourself and let people watch you, and know that people are always watching you, even when you don't think about it, even when it's something you don't think's worth watching. Remember your roommates, the fellow inmates, the guards, the cameras. There's always something. Man, one time I fed a squirrel in the back of my room. And over the thing here, start feeding it, come to the oven. Oh, shit. And I got yelled at by the guard. Stop feeding the squirrels! But the squirrels are something else, man, because the squirrels live in that same enclosed environment with the inmates, and the inmates get lonely, and so you develop a whole different type of relationship with wildlife. And I'll cover that in my next video. I'll probably cover like hobbies, athletics, education opportunities. I'll cover that one next.